Okay, good afternoon everyone. My name is Councillor Peter Candlish. I'm the Cabinet Member for Transport and I'd like to welcome everyone to this Transport Decision meeting. Before we start, I have some housekeeping information to go through. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts and we will assemble at the Queen Victoria statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished, otherwise the camera will remain on you. Everyone speaking will be on camera, apart from those to my right. Please could everyone ensure that they speak directly into the microphone, note to self, to ensure that the audio is clear on the live web stream. So before we go any further, we usually do some introductions here. So if I could start with Councillor Bosher.
Councillor Simon Bosher, Conservative spokesman for Transport.
Councillor Graham Heaney, Labour spokesman for Transport.
Councillor Emily Stradwick, Portsmouth Independent spokesperson.
Councillor George Magic, Reform UK spokesperson.
Felicity Tidbury, Assistant Director for Transport.
Denise Bastow, Parking Office Manager.
David Newton, Head of Highways and Urban Design.
Councillor Oliver for Baffins.
Councillor Sanders for Baffins.
And finally, not least, I believe we have a deputation today. Please, could you just introduce yourself?
Monica Dolling, Epworth Road. Yes, please.
Fantastic, thank you very much. I've had no apologies for the meeting. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? No? In that case, we'll move forward, and if I could ask you, please, Monica, if you would be willing to make your deputation.
Yes, I have a disabled badge. I put in for a bay. I believe somebody objected in my road, mainly because I will be taking a parking space, but 95% of the time I park in my road, it might be right up the other end. The people that have objected have 3 or 4 cars, so that's why their objection. I do have trouble walking these days. I can't walk very far, so a bay outside my house would be extremely helpful to me. That's all, really.
Thank you very much for your deputation and also for being unusually brief. We appreciate that here in the Transport Decision-Making meeting. Now I'd like to have a presentation, and I believe, Denise, you're going to give that.
Yes, that's correct. So this report is to consider the objections that have been received to Traffic Regulation Order Reference PO11 of 2025, which was advertised to introduce 47 new disabled parking bays and remove 31 disabled parking bays in various roads in Portsmouth. Before moving on to cover the objections that have been received, I'd just like to briefly explain eligibility for a disabled bay in a little bit more detail. So the applicant has to have a valid blue badge, and there are currently just over 8,000 blue badge holders in Portsmouth. That actually equates to about 3.8% of the population of Portsmouth. Nationally, there's 5.1% of the population in England have a blue badge. So blue badges are issued to people of very considerable difficulty whilst walking, and also includes those with hidden disabilities. An applicant for a blue badge is automatically eligible if they receive a specific type of benefit, for example, the personal independence payment under the moving around category of at least 8 points. An applicant can also get a bay if they're not in receipt, a badge if they're not in receipt of a specific benefit by applying, and then they're assessed by the Portsmouth City Council's occupational therapist, either based on the information provided in the application or at an in-person assessment. So once the person has a blue badge, they can then apply for a disabled bay. If they don't have any usable off-street parking, there needs to be someone living at the address who has a vehicle registered there. It doesn't have to be the blue badge holder themselves, and they also don't have to drive. And there also needs to be pressure on parking in the area. There's currently 2,085 disabled bays in residential roads around the city, and the number is increasing. In the financial year 2024-25, we installed 210 new disabled bays and removed 170. And then since April 2025, we've installed 134 disabled bays and removed 73. Disabled bays are removed either when the applicant moves or when it's no longer required. There will, of course, also be inevitably some locations that have a higher number of disabled bays in a road than in other roads in the city. So a disabled bay can be used by any blue badge holder displaying a blue badge, and applicants are made aware of this at the time of application. We also take misuse of blue badges very seriously, excuse me, and where badges are used in situations where they've either been stolen using a deceased person's blue badge or in the absence of the blue badge holder, then strong action can and will be taken, as these are criminal offences. In the last 2 years, 23 people have been prosecuted and 255 blue badges have been retained in Portsmouth for these type of instances. Instances where badges, for example, are not displayed correctly in the vehicle or for parking in a disabled bay without a blue badge are dealt with by the issue of a penalty charge notice and not obviously criminal action. If there is suspicion of misuse of either a blue badge or a disabled bay, people can use the My Portsmouth app to report concerns by choosing parking on the list of services and following the instructions. Alternatively, they can email or call the Blue Badge team or Disabled Bay team, and our details on the website. Moving on specifically to the objections received in relation to this traffic regulation order, we received 4 responses relating to 5 disabled bay locations: Copner Road, Epworth Road for 2 disabled bays, Landguard Road and Westbourne Road. The objection to the bay in Copner Road was subsequently withdrawn, and as a bit of background information, Landguard Road is the only location of these where it's in a residence parking zone, the MH Westfield Road. So moving on to the objections, the reasons for the objections are Epworth Road, the 2 bays. We received 1 objection related to concerns mainly over the number of disabled bays already in the road, difficulties with commercial vehicles parking, and also asking for them to be, the road to be considered for residence parking. So obviously the request for residence parking has been forwarded to the appropriate team to record and progress as appropriate. With Landguard Road, the objection was made on the ground that they would be unable to park directly outside their house and concerns raised over the applicant's eligibility. I don't know if you've got the map to hand, but you can see there's actually a build out directly outside the next door's property to the applicant, and obviously what we're planning on doing is marking the bay so it starts at the edge of the build out. We don't want to leave an unusable bit of parking space in between, so that's why it does partially go across number 19 as well as obviously the applicant's property. Westbourne Road, an objection was made over concerns again about the number of bays in the road, and that they feel the bay is a means of securing a parking space for one particular person. In all cases, the applicants are likely to already be parking in the relevant rows where the disabled bays have been proposed, resulting in no real loss of parking space. They all have difficulties whilst walking and will therefore benefit from having a disabled bay close to or outside where they live, thereby minimising the distance they have to walk from parking their car to where they live. So therefore, in relation to the proposal promoted under the Traffic Regulation Order reference PO 1125, it's recommended that the Cabinet Member for Transport approves the implementation of disabled persons parking bays in Epworth Road ×2 bays, Landguard Road and Westbourne Road, and also notes that the remainder of the Traffic Regulation Order relating to the bays that did not have any objections came into operation as a Part A Traffic Regulation Order. Any proposals approved following this report will be brought into operation as a Part B Traffic Regulation Order. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that, Denise. I asked for her to provide a little bit of more an expansive answer, so we actually put on the record the context in which this is being done for creating and maintaining disabled bays. So for those watching, the next section is an opportunity for the councillors who are in this meeting to ask any questions they have, and then we'll ask them whether they have any comments they wish to make. So at this point, is there anyone who's got any questions? Has anyone got any comments? This could be a very quick meeting. In which case, I am happy to take the recommendations as proposed in the officer's report. And once again, I thank Denise for giving such a comprehensive answer, and also to Monica for bothering to come in and actually speak upon the matter herself. Thank you. Okay, we're now going to turn to agenda item number 4, Tangier Road proposed speed humps, TRO P018-25. And for the presentation on that matter, I'm going to turn it over to David Newton.
Thank you very much. So this is a report to consider the public responses to the proposed speed humps at 6 locations along Tangier Road, effectively 2 clusters of 3, the reasons for which become apparent. Before we touch on the responses to the consultation, just a little context. This scheme is proposed as a part of the district, town and local town centres programme for improvements to important areas within local neighbourhoods. As such, it's a combined benefit of both community safety, but principally is driven by the desire to improve accessibility to important local facilities as a part of a place-making process. The scheme is predominantly consisting of, as I said, the speed humps, but also involves Wandorkers, as well as some ancillary activity in a wider scheme around improvements to disabled parking and some safety measures involving bollards to prevent parking on the curb. However, this report focuses exclusively on the Orkers and the speed cushions. In response to the notice that has been advertised, we received one response, I think, which is against the proposals. This response essentially supported the idea behind the proposals, but felt that the number of speed cushions was disproportionate. However, as I mentioned at the start of the my discussion, that actually they're clustered in as 2 sets of 3, and that's to address busy active areas outside the college and also in the local shopping precinct. So we've considered that feedback as a part of the design process and come to the conclusion that it is necessary to have the interventions placed where they are, in the numbers where they are, to achieve the maximum benefit of improved walkability in the local area. I think the fact that there has been only the one objection is a reflection of the considerable amount of community engagement that has gone into this process, and I think it's fair to say that this is a community-led improvement, and after a series of engagement activities, including a consultation exercise, it became clear that of the respondents to the main consultation exercise, 1/3 of those who responded, as indicated in the report, supported this idea and were keen to have traffic calming measures in place and preferred the notion of speed cushions to assist that. So the recommendation based off this is that the proposal to implement the speed cushions and Wandorkers and mini bollards is supported by the Cabinet Member for Transport.
Thank you. And I now believe we have a deputation by Councillor Darren Sanders.
Thanks, Peter. The fact 3 of us are here shows just how important making sure this is delivered is, not just for us, but most importantly our residents. I think I first got complaints about speeding along Tangier Road when I was first elected, which is over 13 years ago. And I think the sense of frustration that this has just not been delivered in the past has been increasing ever since. So therefore, when the idea of actually something happening is important, it's no surprise it's become, as David described, a community-led initiative. But it's in 2 steps, and I want to spend a few seconds talking about the step you're not deciding on today, Peter, which is the two bays, the disabled parking bay and the limited waiting bay outside the toilets and the library. That's there because one of the unintended consequences of the changes to the Neville and Idsworth Road junctions was it was very difficult for people emerging from Neville Road looking right to actually see any traffic coming towards them, any westbound traffic. There are also some vans which historically have been there and seem to be parked there all the time. And so one of the ways forwards, indeed it was one of the residents who suggested having a disabled parking bay there, is actually to try and make sure we can not only continue to get people to come to the pond and feel comfortable parking at the pond, but also to deal with that problem. So that's the bit you're not deciding on today, but that's as important a part of the package as the speed cushions which you've got. There have been accidents along the road. Alderwoman Stagg and I clocked one vehicle coming at 48 miles an hour down the road when we did some speed watch work with the police, and that was 5-6 years ago. So I'm delighted that this is happening. I think we're all delighted this is happening, hopefully, if you agree this today, because speed is a problem, and we need to make sure that people feel safe walking across the roads, and also people don't have to worry about vehicles going about 50 miles an hour along a very difficult bend. So that's the reason why we're here today. I hope you'll be able to approve it. I'm sure three of us are also happy to take any questions anybody else has about this, but it really is important as one way of trying to tackle the traffic nightmare that's bedeviled this part of our ward for at least 13 years. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, although I didn't notice a credit to Dave for bringing in the cash to actually enable it to happen. Anyway, are there any questions about the proposal for the scheme from any of the councillors here today? Councillor Bosher.
I don't disagree with it in principle. I'm just trying to get my brain around the Director of Finance's comments, because this is a speeding issue with regards to road safety, and yet the money seems to have been coming out of planning policy and city development portfolio. Is there any reason why it's come out of that portfolio for what is fundamentally a road scheme as opposed to the planning policy and city development portfolio? Because I couldn't find anything. I've just had a quick look through the budget papers it refers to, and I can't quite see where it's actually coming from.
Thank you. I'll take that if that's okay. Yeah, I recognise it's a sort of blending of two worlds, as I attempted clumsily to highlight at the start. The reason why it's being funded from that pool is that it is being principally brought forward as a placemaking exercise. So while there are community safety benefits from obviously intervening on the highway, what it's actually about is trying to support that local neighbourhood and make it easier for people to access important local facilities. And so that's the role of the district and local town centres programme, which is funded from that portfolio, is to highlight key areas in the city that are recognised within the local plan as important local centres and invest funds to help stimulate them and help support them remain viable and vital to the people that live there.
Well, because some of this goes along right in front of the college, doesn't it? And I'm just trying to marry up the geography of where this outside the college in Tangier Road fits in with something that is the thick end of 3/4 of a mile away, because I could use that argument for where I wanted to put stuff in Drayton, and I can't do it because the money isn't in the transport budget to do it. And yet what I'm looking at is potentially closer to Drayton Shops, and I would argue the college is to that. But so I don't understand why we're taking something away from another portfolio's budget for what I still say is a transport scheme. It's a speeding issue that's being addressed there, and therefore it should come out of the transport portfolio that I see. The other bit, and I just want clarification because it's a bit of a word salad to me, the cost of the current Tangier Road improvement works, 97,885, including implementation of the rubber speed cushions. Now that says to me that we're not spending 98 grand on rubber speed cushions and that there are other things involved in it as well. Does this include the work that has been done in the shopping area with the traffic calming and the raised pavement sections within that particular budget as well?
So I'll take that one again as well. It doesn't include the historic raised continuous footways, but it does include the other measures that Councillor was referring to earlier on in terms of the additional changes to the parking in the area, some enhancements with bollards and other small works. But it's the total cost, including all the professional fees of this phase of the works in that area, which a part of which is the speed cushions.
Could we have a breakdown of that? Because certainly, again, and I'm harping back to what I've done, but rubber cushions don't cost the thick end of £100,000, and I'd be interested to know where this money's being spent, how it's being spent, and where the professional fees are coming into this particular equation. It would also be interesting to note, if we can, what the original budget and costs were for the previous work that's been done in that Tangier Road area as well. It's a question I have asked before, but I've never actually had an answer to. So all of the stuff that's previously done there, just so we can get an overall idea of how much this whole scheme has actually cost over the years, if it's at all possible.
I think we can probably provide that, but I'm not sure that's something we can do in this meeting at the moment.
Quite happy to have a written response to that. Thanks, Peter.
Councillor Heaney.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any sort of big principal objections. I just want to ask a couple of questions, actually. With the speed humps, the road will still be technically 30 miles an hour. Was any consideration given to creating a 20 mile per hour limit on the road? And if so, would that have been enforceable?
Dave, Councillor Bosch is willing to step in if you are struggling, but well, if you could provide an answer, please.
In many ways, he's on the button. Yes, consideration was given to that fact. There are challenges with enforcement, and as a result, we saw the potential of putting speed cushions in as also an opportunity to continue to explore that idea, because it actually starts to, it could be used as a means of paving the way to that scheme, because it will actually reduce speeds down. But that is for consideration longer in the future. It's not a part of this process at the moment. Councillor
Bosch. Oh, sorry.
So this is a sort of, if this works, fine, but if it doesn't, we might go further down the line. Yeah. The second question I had was, sorry, I've got a bit of a croak in my throat. I don't know where this has come from, but I'm assuming there have been some speed checks done on Tangier Road. I don't know when they were done, and I don't know where they were done. Have we got any up-to-date information on speed checks that we've done on the road? Yeah, I know there have been some. I have seen Darren doing his exercise some years ago, but I was wondering if there's anything more up to date.
Sorry, yes, there were. I don't have the results immediately to hand for you, which I was trying to gather. But yes, we had undertaken some up-to-date results, and what that showed is very little, in broad terms, very little breaking of the speed limit, but excessive speeds compared to what people would like, what typically people feel comfortable with in a highly pedestrianised area, such as the shopping precincts and an area that's used predominantly by cycling. So, for example, those sorts of areas, as we've just been discussing, it's typically, or it is certainly supported that you could take an approach for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in those sorts of areas, and we were seeing speeds in excess of that. So it justified the calming measure to bring it down to a more acceptable level for the activities within that area. Apologies, I don't. I'm just going to see if I can get them for you, but I don't live in a hurry.
I mean, I'm happy to sort of receive them later. We don't sort of need it at this very moment. I was just curious to know what the data had shown in terms of that. I mean, because if you think about it, I mean, the college, as I know from experience of going past that quite regularly, does get very busy. There are lots of people walking around, crossing the road. So, calming and slowing traffic in there would be a good thing. I mean, overall, in terms of a comment, I think there's some really good bits in there. I'm happily support the parking proposals which Darren mentioned. I think they're good. I'm also pleased to see us protecting the cycleway, because I do know when I come back sometimes in the evening, although people are using the gym and the football, they seem unwilling to walk a few yards and not to park on the yellow lines. And so I think preventing them from doing that would be definitely a good thing. So.
Simon, a question or a comment?
Another question on the back of Graham's. So we're keeping that section around the college at 30 mile an hour, as I remember it, and it becomes 20 mile an hour when we go into the Tangier Road shops, I believe. I'm sure Graham, Darren will nod at me if that's not true, or will shake his head. It's also a bus route from memory as well. Now, the speed humps that you're proposing to use there, are they going, they're cushioned, so therefore they're going to be within the axle width of a bus and a big 4x4, I'm guessing, yes? Yes. Well, pardon me for being a complete cynic then, so how are they actually going to slow down the traffic on a 30 mile an hour straight stretch of road? Because certainly, again, I'm talking about from up where I live, and think places like Lonsdale Avenue, where they've got speed cushions, and they don't make a blind bit of difference to slowing vehicles down, particularly in the era of big 4x4s and stuff like that. Why are we going with speed cushions when I would suggest they probably aren't going to make an awful lot of difference to reducing the speed?
Say that, or I'm happy to say something on that. But so I would say, firstly, any form of thing on the road, they used to be called sleeping policemen where I came from. People see them and they slow down. And you are also correct that there are some people who fly over the top of them if their suspension will survive it on an ongoing basis. And as the person who puts in the objection, there is also a truth that people do slow down, they go over the bump, and then they accelerate up again. So nothing is perfect, but I think this is an attempt to improve the situation down there, and kind of fits with what the intent of the scheme is.
Can I just say something? Simon, I'm totally with you on all of this. This is just long and overdrawn, and it's, in my opinion, and talking to residents, this is the result of a mess-up of Neville and Isworth Road that should have had a speed cushion integrated into it. COVID happened, equipment cost more, we lost stuff, and it was just a massive mess-up. At the end of the day, something that we have discussed is double yellow lines will make the road automatically wider and safer, so we're not got people walking out, but double yellow lines seem to be something impossible that can be achieved. So therefore it seems that the quickest and cheapest way of calming traffic in Tangiers Road is speed humps. Now, I don't personally think it's going to make a blind bit of difference. I think if anything, there's going to be more accidents. We've got a college, 2 schools. We've also got walkers going to Admiral School and to Milton Cross School. We've got an awful lot of children. We've got one double yellow line, one zebra crossing at the pond end and one zebra crossing down at Tangiers Road. I think you're going to get people jumping over speed cushions to then try and get across the zebra crossing. I do think it's a bit late. And it's not an ideal situation. At the end of the day, in Baffins, we've got an awful lot of cars on the road. They need restricting, whether that is residents' parking zones that we've been begging for, or whether that is double yellow lines on the main stretch where the shops are. Either way, it's not happening. So we've got to have the speed cushions. Is it going to work with the buses? It's not going to make any difference. If anything, I see it making more traffic because the buses are going to have to go wide, round cars, to try and get their axles over a cushion. I think it's going to be a disaster, personally. I'm really sorry to be the negative boo-boo on this, but that's what I'm here, and I'm here to represent the residents. Yes, they want something, but do they want this? No. Are they fed up? Yes. So they're just going, let's just do something, it's better than nothing. But I do think this is going to cost an awful lot of money. I'm happy to be proved wrong, definitely. But I think it's going to cost a lot of money. I think it's going to be a lot of upset. And if it's anything like the history of Neville and Isworth, then it's probably going to go wrong. I'm really sorry. But we haven't got a great history in Baffins at the moment for any kind of calming measures. So I'm with you, Simon. Yeah, I hope my residents like that I said represented them.
And I think it's great to see that a Liberal Democrat colleague has come along to support the deputation of a Liberal Democrat colleague in that respect. But hey-ho, it makes for social media, I'm sure, that all three of them are here supporting it. I just sort of remain to be convinced, but I'm not going to die in a ditch about it. If it's what the residents want, it is. My issues are more around where this money has actually come from to finance this. The other thing, and again, I'm picking up on Graham's piece of information, these are being put in because there is essentially, bottom line, is a speed issue here. So I would have expected to have seen within the report, and I can't see it unless somebody can point me to it, what the quartile measurements of the speed from a recent speed survey were actually demonstrating to reinforce the views here. We've all sat here when residents have been saying, oh, well, they go past my house at 60 and 70 miles an hour because that's the perception they actually had. But when I've argued, and I'm again going back to Drayton and Farlington, when I've argued with transport officers about speed reduction measures in areas, I've usually had them thrown back at me after speed surveys to say the traffic is not essentially going fast enough to justify it, which is a bit of an anomaly anyway, and I don't doubt that I'm the only councillor that's had that sort of situation. And bear in mind that when we're doing what is a speed reduction measure, it hangs its hat on, is there a speed issue in the road? And this is what this is exactly doing. My question would be to officers is, where is the speed data to justify the decision that you are asking yourself to make that decision on? Because if I was sat where you were, that would be the first question I'd be asking. Is there a speed issue? Prove it. And this doesn't do that, this report.
Any other comments, Emily?
I think it's clarity. I think the officer said there was no speed and everyone was going the right speed, is what you just said when Graham asked you the question.
Dave?
So people aren't breaking the 30 mile an hour, well, the majority of people aren't breaking the 30 mile an hour speed limit. And the reason that this scheme is being funded out of a different pool of money than you're used to seeing is because the predominant driver behind it is a placemaking initiative to change behaviours within the local area. And it's the community research that has demonstrated that people's behaviour is affected by the perception of speed in that area, because people are going over the 20 sort of mark that tends to make people feel anxious in those sorts of environments when it's a busy pedestrian environment. And because of that behavioural change requirement to encourage more people to walk in their local areas to access those local services, that is why this is being supported by evidence about perception rather than it being a clear-cut road safety issue, because it would be funded from the transport pot if it was a clear-cut road safety issue, but it's a combined initiative, which is why the funding is from a different source to normal.
Councillor Beauchamp.
I'm sorry, I know what the decision is going to be. I mean, because we've got three Lib Dems giving deputations here, although Captain Leone's seemed to be a rather curious sort of deputation on the back of it. And as a Lib Dem cabinet member, I'm being completely cynical here, and I know what the decision is going to be here. But have I just heard somebody say there isn't a speeding issue, nobody is really breaking the 30 mile an hour limit, so therefore we cannot prove that there is a speeding issue to justify speed reduction measures, so therefore what we're going to do is, because there is a perception, we're going to fund it out of a different portfolio capital budget? I'm sure that's what I've just heard here, which strikes me as being a very curious decision. But I mean, if that's great, then I've got a raft of notes of motion I can bring forward, say, can we finance it out of the capital programme for city centre development when I want speed cushions put in Drayton and Farlington? And I'm sure that there's plenty of other, there's two other councillors of other wards here probably thinking exactly the same thing. I find the whole reason and the lack of data to support it and the budget that comes from it somewhat curious to say the very least, if not somewhat worrying at the same time. And I feel sorry for Hugh, because I think his capital programme is about to get completely battered with road schemes. Because I'm certainly thinking of at least 3 in Drayton and Farnington right now.
So speaking as the councillor for Eastney and Craneswater, I also have a number of places where my residents would like me to be putting in speed reduction schemes based on a perception of the speed. I think it's clear that there are people who are above the 30-mile-an-hour limit. We've had a discussion as to actually whether ideally this sort of an area would be a 20-mile-an-hour limit, but it's not. It's a 30-mile-an-hour limit, and the measurement is against that. And to be honest, I don't recall the number, but I have seen it. The key point here is around the opportunity to do this work by using the district and shopping centre budget. Otherwise, I too would be looking in the Eastney and Craneswater area for some projects that I could be doing from other budgets. This is a tactical opportunity that has been taken to support something that was already a scheme underway, and it could be added on to. And there is a distance issue, which I think is, you've got a gap between, there's the college where there's the cycle lanes going in, which I agree I think is an asset, and then you would have the shopping scheme bit. In between, it's not quite rural, but there's a big open gap where vehicles could be accelerating again, and it seemed to me to make sense to take the opportunity to fill the space in there. So, are there any more questions? Comments?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I think the councillors know I've got a strong affiliation with Baffins. I've got brought up there, and it's a useful little thing for Darren to use. When I was in college there 20 years ago now, Jesus, 20 years ago when I was in college there in Portsmouth College, I don't know if I feel old or I've just made other people feel old, I'm not sure, but 20 years ago we actually had a little political debate group in Portsmouth College talking about speed bumps and calming measures on Tangier Road. So it's, yeah, it's definitely something that's been going on in the area for a long time. I agree, there needs to be something done. Driving down that road does not feel overly safe at times. It's a real concern. There's a lot of bends. It's not a straight road. People do definitely come round flying sometimes. It is dangerous. I mean, I'm a really confident driver, and I'm going to touch wood here. I've never had a crash since I passed my test. But Tangier Road's always one of those roads I've always been cautious on. I've always been cautious on it because for me, it's always been a concern. I actually do agree with Leonie Oliver that I don't know if this is the solution. I think it's maybe a stopgap rather than an actual solution. I actually do agree that double yellow lines would be a more appropriate resolution to the problem. You know, you've got a wide road there that's been removed as a wide road because of all of the cars that are parking along there. So I think that is something to note. And I wouldn't want to waste money, but as I say, I'm not like Simon. I'm not going to die in a ditch over this one. I do think I'd like clarification that the Cabinet member here today has got authorisation under delegated responsibilities to spend another Cabinet member's money, because I assume that's what this is. So I just want to make sure that you do have the delegated authority to do that. So we need to confirm that one. Also, we obviously had an impasse about the bus lane scheme and private hire vehicles in the bus lane scheme, but I always respected your stance on that, although I didn't agree with it. I respected it because you always based it on the facts. So, you know, you said that the facts presented before me. And I think it is clear today that we don't really have the facts, Peter. I think it's clear that we don't have a speed survey. So, you know, I just think that, you know, for a man of yourself where you've gone into that private hire thing and you said, I look at the facts and that's what I'm basing it on, not based off emotions or based off opinions. And we don't have the facts today. This is an incomplete report. So I don't think the evidence certainly backs up the decision, and I hope you would note that. And, you know, just on a final note, I think it's so refreshing, Leonie, to hear someone be so brutally honest, especially from the Liberal Democrats, being so blunt and against what they're probably meant to say. So anytime you want to come over to Reform, you're welcome. But other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Madgwick. And you can, Councillor Kadir, although we only have one deputation.
Sorry, I'm just coming up to a few comments, both Mr. Madgwick and Oliver's yellow line. We have a problem with parking. How are you going to solve that? That's question number one. I walk down there every single day, especially the bend there is no, the monitoring of speeding depends what time they've done it. The people come zooming in that bend. We had 3 or 4 near misses in that area, and nobody seems to be acknowledging that we have an issue about serious accidents going to happen in this area. And so this is something that will stop something happening. So I am in support of speed bump. I know it's going to cost money, it's going to cause problem, but at least we're doing something, we're seeing we're doing something. Thank you.
Darren, you have 30 seconds.
Here goes. This has been going on for years. Is there an ideal situation? No. We had an HMO planning application refused yesterday on Tangier Road because of lack of parking, because nobody could park. Double yellow lines in the shopping area would be difficult because that would actually harm residential parking. Towards the end at the college, a very good idea. Is this ideal? No. Is it a way in which we can try and cut speed? Yes. And we remain open to any other measures should this fail, as we've done with other traffic schemes in the ward. I've never driven along it, George,
Well, I thought you were going
but
to
I've walked
close
along
in
it many
30
times.
seconds, Darren.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude now. We could go on this for quite some time, and I'm sorry, Councillor Kadir, I'm not going to try to address the wider problem about parking and traffic in Baffins, because otherwise what I thought was going to be a brief meeting would turn into a very long one, and there is a big resourcing question to be able to deal with that properly. I think there are some fair questions being asked around here about the priority of the speeding issue within the report. And I heard within the report, and I've heard prior to this meeting, that actually it is not solely a speed or safety-driven report, and that there is a, frankly, tactical opportunity here because there are budgets that can be tapped to be able to get this work done. That isn't the case everywhere, and I think we have to take the opportunities when they come. If in the future there is a more devolved budget over which we also have control, I think we might look at a lot of traffic schemes very different. But this comes out of a period of time when pots of money were available and you had to work with what you had. We had some spirited deputations. Always nice to see independent thinking from the Lib Dems. We clearly don't have a group line, unlike some of the national parties which people now represent. But at the end of the day, I have to make a decision, and I am going to support this, recommendation as presented, because I think it will improve things in that section of Tangier Road, and that will be an improvement for the traffic situation in Baffin. Will it be a solution, Councillor Kadir? It will not. Will it be perfect, Councillor Oliver? It will not. Will it be better than we are today? Yes, and I think it represents decent value for money within the context in which we find it. So, that, I think, concludes our business for today, if I'm not wrong. I haven't got my glasses on.